Hi friends, it's been quite some time. I have posted my last article. I couldn't find time, so today I am going to work on something and show a little bit about SSIS. So what we are looking at today is an Excel sheet having an ID and name, columns and data. So what we will be trying to do is pull this data into our database, and with the help of SSIS, and then we'll try to see how we can do this dynamically, by which I mean the path of where the SSIS, where the Excel sheet will be kept, and the table name will be a dynamic one. Let's see how we do this. So let's just switch to my virtual machine before we start working. So the Excel, I have copied it on my A folder, and it's here. And so initially what we do is we create two tables, EMPA and EMPB, under this test DB, and with the same definition, let's try to create this table. So next, let's start our business intelligence development studio to start creating the package. So what I do is create a new project and select the SSIS integration services project, and put the name as, say, export Excel, or rather import Excel, and we say OK. So this will create a solution for this project that we are trying to work on, that is import Excel. So that's there. Before we start, I just want to remind that we are working on a.xls and not sx file, which means on the 2000, not the latest version of Microsoft Office. Next is, since it is an import Excel project, so what I would do first is, in the debugging, you just select the false for 64-bit. We'll try to work on, because of the connection adapter used in the Excel import doesn't support for 64-bit. So next we'll start working on our package now. First is, we'll create a sequence container. So we drag and drop, and next we name it import Excel, same, and we have a data flow task for dumping the data. Right, I declare two variables, Excel path, one variable which is of string type, and its value, let me just put it for now, initialize with where, in the place where we have dumped our Excel, we are trying to pull. Next is the table name, another variable with name, and I again put it to string, and I initialize it to emp_a. I'm done. Next we'll try to initialize our, just a point before we try to initialize, I would like to point out, let's go to the property of the data flow task, and since we want to make this package dynamic, we will say delay validation, that is the pre-validation check will not happen because our values will be populated at the runtime, the package path and the table name. Next is we bring the Excel source for the DFT task. Again, remember in the properties for data flow task you have to delay the validation check. Here you, and mostly for DFT tasks, you will have the validate external metadata option, so remember to make it false. And next we'll start configuring. So let's select a new connection. For we browse to the path of our Excel and we say OK, and we pull the data from Excel sheet. It'll we say sheet 1. We can take a preview. Yeah, the data is quite good. Next we move to columns. We see the column mappings, external and external, internal and external is fine. Next, our source is perfectly validated and developed. Remember, we are trying to make this thing dynamic one, by which I mean click on the connection manager, Excel source, and next say expressions and select the property for our Excel path. And next is we'll select the variable. That means we are going to pull the value from this variable, and that is going to happen dynamically. We'll come to that later. So this is again done. Next we come to the destination. So destination, drag drop the destination and connect it to the source. Next is remember to again delay the validation. So we have to make the validate external metadata as false, and that's okay, that's done. Next we start configuring our OLDB. So we need a connection for this, so I select my test DB connection and say OK. Next is I'm trying to pull the table name from the variable, so I select the variable and say my table name, and I can preview. It's okay. Next is we say the mapping, so the ID and the name are mapped, and we ignore the value since there is no input for our department. We ignore that. That's all. We are perfectly fine and done. So we are done with our package. We save it and we run this package. It should be pulling data in EMP A table, right? So let's go on the SQL server and try and validate the data. Right, the data has been populated. The default value of department is IT as in the definition of the table. So that's right, that's okay, that's fine. Now the next step is to create this dynamic thing. So what we do is we use the option of package configurations. We enable this package configuration and add an XML. We browse and we say Excel package config. Right, and we save it. Next and say next. So what are the values we are trying to make dynamic? Let's suppose we have two variables, we are trying to make them dynamic. So we are making the value of this Excel path variable as dynamic one and also the table name as a dynamic one. So and say next, and that is our configuration, and we are done. That's done. Now we will be having, let's get the source of this. where we have this solution. We will go to the path maybe, and we will be having an additional file dtsconf with the name dtsconfig. So what we'll just open this in Internet Explorer. I just want to show the values. How do we configure them at the runtime? I mean, yeah, so we are having values for these two properties, that is the Excel path variable and the table name variable, which are now set to employee underscore a and the path as a for under OA folder. So that's right, that's okay, that's perfectly fine. Next, what we do is we open this file with Notepad and we say the value to b and the employee table as also b, and then we save it. So it'll pull the data from, we'll have to put this file under b as well. Right, we have that. We don't have, let's delete this file. We don't have any file at a now. Right, we are done. So we have saved that, and now let's run the package. Before running, I just want to check. Right, there is no, let me truncate table emp underscore a as well, and then we don't have value in any of the tables. Now let's rerun the package. It should be picking the values from the config. Right, now let's try and find out what are the values and what table. Right, so we got the values in emp underscore b table. So that's how we can populate this data dynamically. Now the next step is to deploy this package. So I go to properties, in the deployment utility I have to create, so you say create deployment utility as true, and then click apply and then OK, and you again build the package. That has succeeded. So now once we go under bin, you will have a deployment folder. This will be having three files: the deployment manifest file, the import Excel config file, and the package. So we want to deploy this package now. If we want to deploy this package, we can do it simply by using the manifest file. This will allow us to create the deployment. This is the deployment utility of SSIS. So double click the manifest and it will ask you the option to deploy the package on the file system way or also on the MSDB database or for the server you want to deploy it on. So let's see. Okay, right, let's say yes, and this will start deploying. Yeah, this is the installation window. We say yes, we go ahead with the file system deployment. Right, we can browse to the path we want this package to be kept. So I say I have my path on the SSIS folder I usually deploy. So I select this and say OK and go next. It will start the installation. Here, before installation, just remember to edit the file, config, or just check the values initialized now. We say OK, that's fine, and we say yes, finish. Once this is done, let's see what do we find at the folder where we have deployed. In the SSIS folder we'll find two files, the config and the package, right? So before you can create a SQL job for running this package, and each time before you run you can actually configure your config file dynamically, and the value that you feed in the config file will be used by the package to run, so your package will be a dynamic one. So that was what I was just trying to show in here. I hope it was useful for the users to get how the deployment is done and how we can pull the SSIS, the configuration and stuff like that. Also remember what we had done with the 64-bit option, as without which the connection for Excel sheet will not be working. So that was it for today. Thanks guys.